12 hours after the HOA forced me to tear down my storm wall, the hurricane ripped Karen's mansion to the ground. I can still hear the sound of her scream mixing with the roar of the wind, the same woman who told me survival was less important than aesthetics. My house stood, hers didn't, and the irony is carved into me deeper than any scar. I should back up. My name's James Callahan. I'd put in 22 years with the National Guard and another 5 with FEMA hauling bodies out of wreckage and helping towns that never saw it coming. After my wife died in a storm that should have been minor, I moved into Marshfield Bluffs with my son Matthew. Thought maybe we could breathe again, live in peace. But Marshfield Bluffs came with its own battlefield, the HOA. This wasn't your average picky neighbor nonsense. They had rules about mailbox heights, fertilizer brands, the exact shade of shutters. It was ridiculous, but I kept my head down. I'd seen worse. Until the day the forecast started whispering the name Eliza. The official model said it would skirt the coast. My gut told me otherwise. I'd learned long ago not to argue with the wind. So I did what I always do, I prepared. Out came the storm wall I'd been designing for years, fiberglass-reinforced polymer-slotted panels, subtle but strong, not flashy, not ugly, just survival in its purest form. By sunrise, Matthew and I were stacking sandbags and securing shutters. The boy didn't complain, didn't question. He knew why I was obsessive. He remembered his mother. Then I heard it. The crunch of cheap tires. The tap of heels on my driveway like a judge entering a courtroom. Karen, red HOA windbreaker zipped up like it was a badge of rank hair, perfect even in the rising wind. She cleared her throat, and I didn't have to look up to know trouble had arrived. "Mr. Callahan," she said sweetly, "any exterior modifications must be pre-approved by the HOA Architectural Committee." I wiped sweat from my brow. "They're storm panels, Karen. Temporary. Necessary." She squinted like she was inspecting a stain on her marble countertop. Temporary or not, they're visible from the street. That violates Clause 4.6b. The governor just declared a state of emergency. Maybe worry about wind shear instead of curb appeal. She smiled, tight, triumphant. The kind of smile people wear when they think they've got power in their pocket. There's no need to panic. The forecast suggests only tropical storm conditions. I felt heat crawl up my neck. I'd heard those words before, right before I buried my wife. Behind her, the compliance officer, Lyle, scribbled notes looking like he'd rather be anywhere else. But Karen turned to him and ordered, "Write him up. Immediate removal required." And just like that, my house went from fortress to violation. The notice sat in my mailbox like a death sentence. I didn't tell Matthew. I couldn't put that weight on him. Instead, I played along. I removed the outer panels, left the reinforcements hidden behind siding and hurricane glass. I knew Karen wouldn't look too hard. She was too busy polishing her chandelier. But the knot in my stomach tightened. By afternoon, the HOA email came signed, of course, by Karen herself, demanding full removal by sunset. And when I didn't bow quickly enough, she escalated. That evening, 2 unmarked trucks rolled up, contractors hopping out with crowbars and bolt cutters. And there she was again, perched in her spotless white golf cart with gold trim arms crossed like a sheriff at high noon. "Stop right there," I shouted, stepping off the porch. "You don't have permission to touch my property." Karen hopped down hair-whipping in the storm wind, but her eyes never blinked. "Mr. Callahan, your unauthorized structures are in direct violation of Marshfield Bluffs Regulation 3. 2.6. You were given notice. You ignored it. These men will remove the panels. There's a Category 4 hurricane, hours away." I motioned at the sky, now bruised gray-green. "You take that wall down, you're putting lives at risk." Her chin lifted. "The HOA cannot be liable for individuals who defy regulations. Community standards last forever." My son clenched his fists beside me. "You're insane," he yelled. She didn't even glance at him. She just ordered, "Do it." And they did. The sound of crowbars prying at anchors still haunts me. My sandbags tossed aside like garbage. My reinforced plates stacked in their truck like scrap metal. Matthew lunged at one of them, got shoved back, and I had to drag him away before it turned ugly. Karen watched with satisfaction until the last panel was gone. "You've put this whole block at risk," I told her. She shrugged. "Storms come and go. Community standards last forever." And then she left me standing there, fists clenched, house stripped bare. That was the moment I felt it real, crushing helplessness. I questioned everything. Maybe she was right. Maybe I was paranoid building bunkers in suburbia. Maybe I was the crazy one turning my grief into concrete walls. For a split second, I wanted to give in to let the storm take me with it. But then I looked at Matthew, jaw-tight eyes burning with the same fear I carried every day since Melinda died. And I remembered her lying in that ICU bed when the hospital generator failed. I remembered how forecasts and rules didn't save her. Preparation would have. I wasn't crazy. I was the only sane one left. So I patched what I could. Reinforced from the inside, hunkered down with my son in the basement, the walls groaning as the storm rolled in. Outside, neighbors sipped wine on patios, Karen fussed over her hedges. And then, at midnight, Eliza arrived. The house breathed with the wind walls flexing but holding. We sat in silence, lantern between us, listening to the freight train roar outside. And then came a sound sharper than thunder, the collapse of something massive. I rushed to the storm window, peered through rain-smeared glass. Karen's mansion was folding in on itself like a paper doll. The roof gone columns crumbling, and then a scream. Her scream. By dawn, Marshfield Bluffs looked like a war zone. Trees, splintered cars, overturned roofs scattered like leaves. But our house stood. Her palace was rubble. I found her half buried beneath what used to be her grand staircase, bruised and broken, but alive. Belle, her young assistant, was trapped beside her. I didn't think. I dug ripped boards apart, hauled marble chunks with my bare hands until my lungs burned. And when I finally pulled her free, she collapsed into me, sobbing, whispering, "Your wall. It saved you." I didn't answer. I didn't need to. She knew. The neighborhood knew too. Drone footage captured it all. Karen's mansion flattened my modest home still standing. Within days, inspectors were swarming journalists sniffing around. Lyle, the clipboard man, showed up at my door shaking, confessing that Karen had forced them to ignore permits and prioritize appearances. She said optics were more important than safety, he stammered. The city didn't take long. Investigations launched. Board members resigned or fled. Karen herself was escorted out in a city vehicle, her arm in a sling, her mouth a tight, resigned line. She stopped on my porch just long enough to say, "I shouldn't have removed your wall." I didn't reply. I just looked past her at the ruin she'd created. And that's where it ends. Karen lost her mansion, her board, her power. Everything she'd built on vanity crumbled in one night. The storm exposed her for what she was, a tyrant armed with bylaws, blind to reality, undone by the very wind she mocked. Hurricanes don't care about your rules, and neither does the truth.